Let's take you to this conversation now. The Defend Our Democracy campaign is today hosting a conference for Democratic Renewal and Change. The conference will see some 300 people from civil society, labor, business, faith-based institutions, youth groups, academia and various other sectors gather to share ideas, strengthen existing work and develop a common program of action around democratic renewal and change. Now, let's discuss this further. We're now joined via Zoom by secretariat member of the Defend Our Democracy campaign, Dr. Fazel Randera. Dr. Randera, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, your conference comes at the back of the release of the final report on state capture by the State Capture Commission, a process that was 4 years in the making, revealing wide-scale corruption within state-owned entities and to an extent corporate South Africa. What does your conference seek to achieve, especially if one has to look at your theme?
Thank you very much for having us, and good afternoon to your viewers. The conference, as you've highlighted, it's on renewal and change. We are in the afternoon of the first day of the conference, and there are seven commissions meeting this afternoon, one of which is dealing with the Zondo Commission. What is it that the conference hopes to achieve? We certainly hope that coming out of the conference will be a declaration that encompasses many of the discussions that have taken place, as well as the keynote addresses that were given this morning by former Deputy Minister of Finance, Mr. Jonas, as well as Professor Sandy Africa and Reverend Frank Chikane. So all of that will be integrated, and hopefully by 11 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, we'll be able to go into the second part of what we want to achieve, which is where does the Defend Our Democracy campaign go to as from here? We set up this campaign almost a year ago. It has highlighted many areas where our democracy is under threat, including, of course, the work that the Zondo Commission has done. And this morning, we were able to recognize the work of the Zondo Commission by inviting Professor Musala to accept a token of our appreciation for the work of the Zondo Commission.
And just speaking about that report, I mean, it goes to Parliament, as we know, in 4 months' time. A lot hangs in the balance on how Parliament will act and how the recommendations especially will be implemented and whether or not key people will ultimately be held accountable. Now, Reverend Frank Chikane believes, as do most South Africans, that Parliament has failed South Africans. You know, he was saying that at your conference. Can you just elaborate on what your expectations are, particularly as it comes to those recommendations?
Well, I go back to a statement we made at the time when the final report of the Zondo Commission came out. And what we pointed out in that statement were several key points. The one was an appreciation of the work that the Commission has done. The second one was that we were asking the President, actually, to ensure that it doesn't go beyond the 4-month period that is asked for. The third point we made was that we didn't understand why Parliament had to wait another 4 months before they actually came out with their report. Surely there's been enough coverage of what the Commission has done, what the Commission has recommended, and it doesn't take 4 months for the various committees of Parliament to discuss and come up with their own report on what they think Parliament should be doing to hold the executive accountable over many of the recommendations that have come out from the Commission.
Now, when we start to talk about accountability and just the expectations, not only from your entity, but from many South Africans wanting to see something being done, wanting to see those recommendations being implicated, the difficulty then and the sensitivity then comes around, our very own president, President Cyril Ramaphosa, being implicated in criminal activity just recently in the Phala farm scandal, especially as you are calling for democratic renewal and change. How then are we expected then to have a democratic renewal and change when a leader of the country is implicated in crime?
Well, you know, the president has gone out publicly and commented on that. It's a case that's being taken up and investigated by the police and by other agencies. I think we need to wait for that report to come out rather than us having to make a statement on the guilt or otherwise of the president. So I think we would wait for the report of the police and the Hawks to come out before we comment on that.
And finally, Dr. Randera, you know, just looking at your conference and what it's wanting to achieve, particularly taking South Africans into your confidence and also rallying behind your cause. The question of active citizenry, you know, given the calls that our democracy has for several years now been marred by corruption. You know, how then would you want to galvanize South Africans to start fighting to regain the democracy that's so hard fought for? Now,
that is a very important part of the outcome of the conference. We have some 130 different organizations represented from civil society, as well as business and the labor movement and the religious sector, who have many representatives here today. So we are hoping that what comes out of this conference is the motivation for these groupings to come together, to give vent and support to defend our democracy, continuing the work that it has started, that we are able to take the issue of active citizenry into every community in our country, and hopefully we can through that process get to a point whereby communities take a much more important interest into the Constitution and the democracy that we're living in at the moment.
I would then imagine that the recommendations that do come out of your conference will then be shared for people to, at least those that want to, adopt some of your call to action.
Yes. When we come out with the declaration tomorrow, it will still be a draft declaration, and from that we will send it out across the country to as many organizations as possible and communities as possible for endorsement of the declarations. So we hope to provide a time period for responses to take place so that it can be discussed as widely as possible.
Dr. Randera, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming onto the show. All right, well, we'll take a quick break, but we'll be back with more of your top stories. Of course, Eskom is one of those stories that we are following for you. We'll also be interviewing a young farmer as we've just celebrated Youth Month of June. She'll be talking about some of the challenges and, of course, the successes in her industry.